Hey, good morning. I'm Patricia Murphy. It's Monday. This is Seattle Now. Washington has 6 national forests, making up about 9 million acres of land in our state. Those lands are managed by the U.S. Forest Service, which also does research to help lessen the severity of our wildfire seasons. Now, a new directive from the Trump administration could change how our forests are managed. We'll hear more from KUOW reporter John Ryan in a minute. But first, let's get you caught up. Today is the deadline for Washington flood victims to apply for low-interest disaster loans. The money's available for both individuals and businesses to replace things like appliances, furniture, and cars, also for home repair. The funding's being provided by the U.S. Small Business Administration. A national campaign against book bans has brought Seattle Public Library cards to more than 28,000 young people across the country. SPL joined the Books Unbanned initiative in 2023. The Seattle Times reports the program allows young people to access free ebooks through the Libby app, even if they don't live in Seattle. Meanwhile, Seattle voters will decide in August on a $480 million property tax levy to fund library operations, facilities, and programming. And local World Cup organizers are unveiling a permanent bronze sculpture outside Lumen Field today. It's called Vital Spirit, created by local artist George Sotakawa. It was commissioned to commemorate Seattle's role as a host city for the 2026 World Cup. The artist and city officials will be on hand to unveil the sculpture at 11 this morning at Lumen Field's North Plaza. We'll be back with more headlines on tonight's episode of Seattle Now. Wildfire season is coming. Forecasters say there are already warning signs of a difficult, potentially smoky season ahead. And the Trump administration recently announced a restructuring of the U.S. Forest Service, which does wildfire research in our state. KUOW environment reporter John Ryan is here to talk about why and how it might impact our forests this year and beyond. John, appreciate you being here.
Hey, Trish.
So there are quite a few local and national agencies that look after public lands. What does the U.S. Forest Service do?
They are one of the biggest land managers in the country. They manage over 150 national forests in 42 states, and their area is bigger than California and Montana combined. So it's a lot of land that they manage, and they have the difficult assignment of trying to manage these lands for multiple uses. That's their phrase. It means they're trying to both for recreation, for wildlife and wilderness, timber production, other uses. So they have a juggling act that is always difficult. And here in Washington, we've got 6 national forests, and the one that people might be most familiar with in our area is the Mount Baker Snoqualmie, which covers most of the Washington Cascades up to the crest of the ridge.
Okay, 6 beautiful national forests. John, let's talk about the restructuring. What's happening and how could the Pacific Northwest be affected?
Yeah, so in March, the Trump administration announced a restructuring, a reorganization of the U.S. Forest Service. What topped the headlines at first was that they're planning to move the headquarters from Washington, D.C., like right next to Congress and the White House, to Salt Lake City. The logic behind it is that most national forest land is out in the West, and they say they want to get the decision makers closer to the ground. But another big part of this restructuring was that they're going to be closing most of the forest research stations around the country. They're going to close 57, and only 20 will stay open. So a big part of what the Forest Service does is research how forests work, how we can manage them to get the most out of them, whatever that most might mean to different people.
Okay, and one of those research centers is here in Seattle and another one in Wenatchee. Who works there and what do they do, John?
Yeah, so the one in Seattle is called the Pacific Wildland Fire Sciences Lab. It's in Fremont, and their focus is on what fire does to human health, to the forests themselves, to wildlife, and things like that. And they provide guidance on how to manage fires, whether it's fighting them or maybe even setting them intentionally to prevent worse fires from starting. Some of the current projects include looking at the most effective ways to reduce fire hazards in forests and then updating maps of fire threats to rural communities, to wildlife habitat, and to carbon storage because trees are made of carbon, and when you burn it, that carbon goes in the atmosphere and contributes to climate change. In Wenatchee, their work focuses on the largest national forest in Washington. That's the Okanagan-Wenatchee National Forest, and it stretches from the Canadian border all the way down to Mount Rainier. And they do all kinds of research focused on that place and how to help manage it better. I should add that there is one research station staying open in Washington. That's in Olympia, and that one is focused on the Olympic National Forest. It's staying open, at least for now. The Trump administration's 2027 budget proposes ending all funding for forest research.
You know, the center's now closing in Fremont, you said. Are people going to lose their jobs in Washington? What have you heard from the Forest Service employees you've talked to?
The Forest Service says people are not going to lose their jobs, but they will have to relocate. But a lot of people are skeptical of that claim. So far, the Forest Service hasn't even told its employees many specifics yet, like who has to relocate or where. I spoke with a fire researcher named Susan Pritchard. She works for the University of Washington. She's based in the Methow Valley, where fire is a big deal. And here's what she had to say.
Whenever people are required to uproot and move, that disrupts their ability to conduct place-based research. So I would say in some cases, people are used to working remotely, but that's harder to do when forest research is so tied to what happens on the ground, including what's happening in this upcoming wildfire season, which will be a doozy.
I spoke with one Forest Service researcher who asked not to be named, obviously a very sensitive topic, and they told me they think a goal of this rather vague announcement is to sow chaos and fear among employees and get them to leave voluntarily, not unlike last year we saw a lot of people being encouraged to leave voluntarily with Elon Musk's so-called Department of Government Efficiency. That anonymous researcher says, I was told my office was closing, but not where I'd end up. Same town, same state, who knows? One interesting comparison is that when another federal agency called the Bureau of Land Management relocated its headquarters in the first Trump administration, they went from D.C. to Fort Collins, Colorado. 90% of the headquarters employees quit.
Oh, so there's some history there and certainly some really important work being done. John, what is the current wildfire outlook this summer, and could this restructuring make things more challenging this year?
Yeah, we are expecting a harsh fire season this year because we've had this snow drought where we just didn't get much snow in our building up in our mountains, and that snow usually very slowly melts and keeps the soils moist, keeps vegetation moist, prevents extreme fires. We're not having that this year. We're really bad shape for snowpack, and we're expecting a very warm summer. So fire conditions could be extreme pretty soon. A lot of the research that these stations do is long-term. It has long-term benefits, but some of it is really immediate. The Seattle Wildland Fire Lab, they do a lot of smoke modeling and smoke forecasting, which helps firefighters know where to go to work effectively and not be in dangerous amounts of smoke, and helps the whole state know where smoke might be really bad due to any given fire.
And our state's wildfire seasons have been getting more intense, so it makes me wonder who is looking out for Washington's forests if this move does impact our local research centers.
There are other forest researchers like Susan Pritchard from University of Washington, but it is true also that the Forest Service has been kind of a world-class center for forest research, and a lot of that appears to be in some jeopardy now, although the Trump administration says it's not. The Forest Service also says that its firefighting will not be affected by this reorg, but there is some question about that as well.
What is the thinking behind the restructure, and how will this help preserve our forests?
The thinking of moving the headquarters is that they want to get the people working on the forest closer to where most of the forests are. That logic doesn't apply when you close 57 out of 77 research stations, when people might have to be very far away. One critic said, you can't research Sitka spruce in Florida. You can't research loblolly pines in Oregon.
Sure.
So it seems likely that dislocated, relocated researchers will have a harder time doing this research, and the research seems likely to suffer.
John, who thinks this is a good idea? What are they saying?
Well, officials in Utah are happy to have a bunch of new jobs come with the headquarters. And the timber industry, officials say it makes sense to have the headquarters out west. The industry is also happy with the Trump administration's push to really boost timber sales from the national forests. This is not part of the reorg, but the Trump administration's proposed federal budget, it zeroes out research entirely, quadruples money available for cutting and selling timber from the national forests.
Okay, so an opportunity maybe for the timber industry here. All right, I know I'm going to prep for wildfire season. As a reporter, John, what are you looking out for as this story progresses?
We've already seen some pushback from Congress. A bunch of Democratic senators have said this plan is a bad idea and it's going to be really bad as fire season approaches. And as fire season builds up, I guess, I'll be certainly looking to see how firefighting is affected and if we're still getting the kind of quality of information of like smoke forecasts, things like that, to help firefighters do their jobs well and to help us all weather what can be a really rough time of year if you're in an area hit by wildfire smoke.
Yeah, really appreciate it. John Ryan reports on the environment for KUOW. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you listening to Seattle Now, and thank you to our generous financial donors. You make this show go. You can support the Seattle Now community by rating the show and sharing it with a friend. Today's episode was produced by Vaughn Jones. It was edited by Caroline Chamberlain Gomez. Our production team also includes Andy Hurst, Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers, and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. Talk to you tonight for Evening Headlines.